All right, so she joins us every Monday here, Amber Wilson, and of course, all of her appearances are presented by Sawgrass Infinity. That's right. 400 new Infinity models in stock at all times. SawgrassInfinity.com, conveniently located off the Sawgrass and Commercial Boulevard. Sawgrass Infinity, where the commercial ends and the savings begin. How are you today, Amber?
I'm good. Jonathan ZASLOW would have been a little bit better if the Florida Gators had offense, especially against the Miami Hurricanes, but I'm good. It was a fun weekend with you.
We had a fun weekend. And, so I talked about it a little earlier on the show here today. College football campus tour was here in Miami this weekend for Canes and Gators. And I don't know, not to get like mushy and emotional, but I thought this weekend was a big deal, at least personally for me, from, where you and I came from doing shows almost 10 years ago locally here. And then, being able to really just do the show we do all these years later on ESPN radio in our hometown and ahead of a Canes Gators game on the stadium grounds. I thought it was a really, really special thing.
Yeah, from the bottom, now we hear. No, we were never on the bottom, obviously. But yeah, it's very different. We were doing local. We were talking about the Canes and to a lesser extent the Gators for so many years together. And then to be able to do it on a national stage. You're a college football expert. You, Paul Feinbaum, Heather Dinich, kind of sort of me. I'm working my way up. But it was a full circle moment. It's cool because we get to go to all these schools all around the country. It's awesome to see them. It's awesome to see the different environments. But Saturday felt like being home. I mean, it's not, it's not where I grew up, but it's where I grew up in the industry. Certainly it's where I lived for so many years. It's where we sort of grew up in the industry together. And so it really felt like home. It was very, very cool to be representing ESPN, but to be able to do it on our home turf.
How fun was the tailgate? So we did a tailgate with Mike Ryan. And I told you, Amber, beforehand, I said no promises, but I think that the Florida Panthers are going to be there and a handful of them are going to be tailgating with us. They were tailgating the whole time with us.
They were. Those dudes like to tailgate. Listen, Canadians, Midwesterners, hockey guys, they know how to drink. They know how to have fun. And they know how to be down to earth. That's the thing. When you cover hockey in this business, there are no athletes that you interact with that are better to the media and that are just cooler and more approachable. And it's just such a different thing than a lot of the other sports. And
like how normal a dude was Matthew Tkachuk?
Like just the most normal dude. I mean, it's so fun. I can never get over that with hockey players. Like these guys who are as famous in their sport as you can get. Back-to-back Stanley Cup champs, like they're on top of the entire universe in their sport right now. Drinking a beer, hanging out, chopping it up, being cool as F, eating burgers like the rest of us. That's really, really cool to see. Those guys were a lot of fun. And what's funny about hockey players too is when they're so intimidating when they're in their sweaters and all their gear, and then you see them out in the wild. Jonathan ZASLOW, they're normal dudes. They're just dudes.
It's funny they, like for instance, Nico Mikkola was there, and he's really tall. He's probably about 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", and he's certainly really tall. But you see these guys on the ice, and they look enormous. But they're not. They're all really thin dudes.
Mm-hmm. And not like weird, like not like so thin, not like basketball. Some of these basketball players thin that look otherworldly because they're so tall and they're so thin and they're, that they're not built like normal people. Hockey players, they could be me and you, Jonathan ZASLOW. I mean, not really, not you per se.
I mean, not me, because for me, it's like looking in the mirror at Bryant McKinney. All right. So not me.
Yeah, that was confusing when Bryant McKinney was on set with us. It was hard at times to tell you two apart. So I worked through that. That's why they pay me the big bucks here at ESPN.
What do you make of the atmosphere at Hard Rock Stadium? Because it's a much different atmosphere than we're used to with our college football campus tour, where the stadiums are on campus. So the tailgating is in neighborhoods and it's on campus. And then everybody walks around campus to the game, which is on campus. And it's, it's bleachers, all of these stadiums, but it's certainly a lot more fancy at Hard Rock Stadium, and it's not this collegiate atmosphere. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I've been there for big-time Canes games before, and the thing about...
Have you? Because I was saying to Mike Ryan when the game started, and it was so loud, and it was a great atmosphere, and I said to him, This is easily, now I went to a lot of Canes games at the Orange Bowl back in the day, so I'm not comparing it to the Orange Bowl, but this was the best Canes atmosphere I'd ever been at, because I guess I really haven't been to any huge Canes games at Hard Rock Stadium.
Well, you've certainly been to like Canes, Florida State, even if both of those teams weren't top 5 teams in the country.
Yeah.
The crowds still get up for those games big time. You and I were at a big time matchup. Remember when Big Show was there and we were in a suite?
Yeah, that was Canes, Florida State. Yep.
That was a huge one, even though I don't remember, frankly, where either of those teams were ranked at the time, but I do remember that environment. That environment was really raucous that night at Hard Rock. So I've seen that place lit before. I would say that if it hadn't been raining, then I think that it would have been at a slightly another level than it was. And I mean, credit to all the fans that were still there and still up for the whole game and certainly still loud. But the fact that it had been pouring all day, I feel like took a little something away from it, because I think it took away from some of the tailgating. I think people came in, they weren't pre-gaming necessarily to the same extent that they would have otherwise been, because it was so sloppy outside for the entire day. But it was a really good environment. I mean, it was a tough environment. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it necessarily competes in my mind. You know, listen, I'm an SEC gal. Like you and I go to some of these environments around the country.
Oh, yeah.
It's so loud you can't even think. And to me, it's not that, but it's still a really, really incredible, special environment, certainly for a night game against the Florida Gators.
I'll tell you what, Amber, you didn't stay the whole game. So when the Gators scored the touchdown to make it 13-7, and then shortly after that, when they intercepted the ball, it was very loud with Gator fans. Like, I would say it was probably about 30% Gator fans there, and they were really loud.
Right, which I said that was going to happen. I mean, Gators, even when we're down, obviously, there's a lot of them that live there, first of all, so you don't even have to travel. And then second of all, you're traveling, and a lot of them are traveling from other parts of Florida, so it's an easy trip. But I was on the plane back on Sunday with a bunch of Gators fans who were flying back through Atlanta. So a lot of Gators fans had flown in for that game because it's still a rivalry game. And the Gators are one of those fan bases, they travel no matter how much we suck. That's the reality of the situation. So I'm not surprised to hear that. They did say that I was listening at that point. I left the game early with the ESPN staff. I left at halftime. It's not the same sitting in the press box. And it was a really long day for us.
It was really long.
Really long. I mean, we had gotten to the stadium really early in the morning to prepare for.
We got there at like 8:30 a.m. and then on top of it, we each got drenched at one point of the day. So we're walking around in a shirt that was sopping wet at one point.
Hair that was sopping wet. It was and then we're doing multiple shows throughout the day and then shooting social content. So 12 hours straight of that. Ends up being a lot. So we end up, the people I'm with, they wanted to leave at halftime. They also had to catch flights at 6 a.m. So they were only going to get a couple hours of sleep. So I said, you know what, I'll go ahead and ride back with you guys. And then I'll just listen. I said, as long as I can listen to the call on the radio in the car on the way back before I can get to my hotel to watch. And so I had the Gators broadcast on, is the call that I was listening to because I'm a homer. And they were talking about that. They were talking about how quiet at that moment the Miami fans were, obviously, and that you could hear.
You feel like at that moment, at that moment, like, the Gators couldn't move the ball all game. They got there, I think, second first down of the game came late in the third quarter. But like, was there any moment in the game that you thought the Gators, because they had the football down 13-7, was there any point you thought they were going to win?
They were historically bad offensively. I mean, if I start going through the numbers, it's like nothing we've ever seen from the Gators before. And they're one of the worst teams in the entire FBS now offensively. They can't get anything done on offense, Jonathan ZASLOW. So no, there was never a point that I felt like, as a Gators fan, that we really had a shot. Now, defensively, we're really good. And it's really incredibly frustrating to watch. And people are going to talk about how Carson Beck looked mediocre, and he did, but I also think a lot of that was the defense. I don't think people are realizing the reason that Garrett Nussmeier doesn't look that good in that LSU offense. I think a lot of that had to do with the Gators defense. The reason that the Canes offense didn't look otherworldly and, Carson Beck didn't seem so accurate is, I think, in large part because of what the defense was doing. So it's very frustrating because I think we have a championship caliber defense. and an atrocious offense, easily one of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense in the entire SEC at the very least. And that's unbelievably infuriating as a Gators fan because you feel like you're wasting away on half of the side of the ball. I mean, I guess the Canes fan probably felt like that last season when they have this amazing offense and they have the #1 overall pick and they can't get bleep done defensively down the stretch of the season to secure their spot in the playoffs. Obviously, now the Canes are balanced on both sides of the ball. We are incredibly imbalanced, but that Gators defense is legit. But no, I wasn't surprised that we played it close. I kept saying it's going to be a close game. I mean, Mike Ryan was asking me at the tailgate, and he was heckling me a little bit. And I said, here's the thing. If we actually had those 3 defensive players, I would feel a little bit more confident that we could give you some trouble. I'm not saying we'd win because, again, ain't no offense over here up in here in Gainesville, Florida. But we were, with a broken defense, still pretty darn effective. I wasn't surprised about that. It doesn't matter if you can't score points.
So I'll let you guys behind the scenes a little bit with what we have going on with ESPN, where next weekend, Amber and I are in Athens for Georgia and Alabama, which is going to be fantastic. You also got Oregon, Penn State next week, which is the big game, but Alabama, Georgia, awesome. We love going to the big SEC games, so it's really great. But the week after that, the schedule has us going to Chapel Hill for North Carolina and Clemson. That's a brutal game. It's really, really bad game at this point. I mean, Belichick just got his ass kicked by UCF. Dabo just lost to Syracuse. That's a bad game, as it turns out. So our people behind the scenes are trying to shift gears where the Canes are off this coming week, but that next weekend, it's Canes at Seminoles. So they're trying to get us to Tallahassee, Amber.
I've never wanted to go to Florida State so bad. I obviously that matchup, assuming that FSU doesn't drop one to Virginia, but that matchup either way would be a hell of a matchup. But I don't expect that to happen anyway. So to be able to go in there with both of those teams undefeated,
I think they're going to get it done. I think we're going to be able to switch. I think we're going to end up in Tallahassee.
I hope so. Listen, that's above our pay grade. There's all sorts of, there hotel contracts, site contracts, or stuff going on. If we can't switch it, it's because they weren't able to logistically. We don't quite have the budget of game day. The way the game day works at ESPN, they already book things in all 3 cities, and then they decide. And that's not really how we work over on the radio side, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll be able to flex that one out. Because if we have the opportunity to do another Canes game, that would be a hell of a lot of fun for me and you. And then, of course, being there in Tallahassee in that environment, bringing that to people. Because also, here's the thing. Not only does Clemson and UNC suck, but UNC's not – if it was like a UNC basketball game, it might not matter if both teams suck, right? But UNC's not a football school. So what is that environment like? You can go to some of these SEC schools, and even when the team sucks, there's still going to be an environment there for a football game. Is there an environment in Chapel Hill for a football game? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So hopefully we are at the next Canes game as well. Amber, anything to beef with as far as the AP poll goes? I mean, Notre Dame got their first win of the season, so they jumped up 2 spots to 22. You had Indiana.
Is that an overreaction to you?
I mean,
look, you didn't want them ranked. This is why I'm asking you. I didn't have a problem with the fact that they were ranked, that they were 24th. Coming off of an 0-2 start because of who they lost to. And it wasn't like they got blown out by those teams either. But Texas A&M, I have a lot of respect for. And obviously we have a lot of respect for the Miami Hurricanes. So I didn't have a problem with them being still ranked at the back end of the 25 if you felt like they were still a top 25 team and they just had a rough start to the schedule. But you didn't want them ranked at all. So then for them to move up after a cupcake win.
I'm okay with them where they are now because they did finally get a win. So if you want to do the whole, look, we know they're a really good team, so that's why we have them ranked 22. But at some point, you got to win games. I don't care if we know they're a good team. They were 0-2, all right? You got to win games. So I didn't like that they weren't ranked. I'm fine with them being ranked now that they finally have.
I'm a little surprised Illinois is still ranked, which I understand. They were, 9th, I think, before.
No, I am too. No matter how good you think Indiana is. Yeah.
Now given, the AP poll obviously has that level of respect for Indiana that even if you get blown out to that degree, they're still saying, well, you could still be one of the 25 best teams in the country, I guess. I was a little surprised by that because of how ugly that was and because Illinois had played nobody before Indiana, which is why they were so grossly overrated because nobody knew how to rate that team. That game was a really surprising one. I don't think that the top 5 here is particularly surprising. I still think Penn State at this point is overrated. I mean, we have to find out who Penn State is.
We're going to find out this weekend.
We're going to learn. We're about to. So that's going to determine a whole lot this weekend. Were you happy that the Canes moved up to number 2? I was happy as a Gators fan, by the way, because I feel like that's the AP poll recognizing that Gators defense, even though the Gators suck, that Gators defense is legit.
I didn't think they were going to move up, but obviously it makes sense because you look at the Canes' resume, Notre Dame, South Florida, and then the Gators, even though they weren't ranked, their resume right now is better than anyone, in the top 5. Penn State hasn't played anybody. I'm not so impressed with LSU, so I'm glad they jumped up. Matter of fact, Paul Feinbaum and Heather Dinich, they were making the case that the Canes should be number 1 in the poll.
I've heard that from a lot of people now. A lot of experts have the Canes coming off of this win, which, again, I'm a little surprised by because we weren't ranked. The Gators aren't ranked. But coming off of this win, I have now heard multiple college football experts. I mean, not expert like you, Jonathan Zaslow, but, right. Other college football experts. I've heard them say that Miami is their number 1. So there is a lot of that going on. To me, Ohio State's still the number 1, but I understand the argument resume-wise. I mean, listen, Texas, was a good win, though, for Ohio State to open the season.
Amber, can you explain to me? So the SEC has revealed who the opponents are going to be, right? The repeat opponents with the new 9-game conference schedule. Can you explain what's going on there?
Yeah, so let me pull it up for you so that I make sure I get the rotation right. So basically what's going to happen is the SEC now, because they expanded to 9 games, but they want to keep some of the regular matchups within that 9 games.
Three regular rivals every year?
So 3 regular rivals every year, and then your remaining spots will be filled by other rivals that have to rotate where you hit everybody every couple years. So you're still going to end up going through the rest of the SEC. In other words, there isn't supposed to be a scenario where, like you used to with the old SEC schedule, where you'd go 6 years before, the Gators saw Auburn again, right? That's not supposed to happen now. So now you're supposed to be able to get through the entire SEC here with this rotating basis. But with those 3 teams, those are your 3 teams.
How do they determine those 3 teams?
So apparently what they did was they considered tradition. So they made sure that they wanted to keep Florida, Georgia, for example. Yep. That's sort of the primary example of the SEC matchup that you do not want to get rid of. So Florida and Georgia are going to see each other still every year. And then after that, it was a game of, once you kind of got the traditional matchups, it was a game of logistics in terms of scheduling. Here's how I feel about it, though, as a Gators fan. Makes a lot of sense that on our rotation here with our 3 teams, Georgia is obviously there. That works. Our other 2 teams are Kentucky and South Carolina.
Really? That's disappointing.
So I guess, listen, maybe it's not disappointing to the coaching staff at Florida because we know that Florida, the last 2 seasons, this season and last season, have had the hardest schedule in the entire FBS.
Yeah.
And Kentucky and South Carolina are perennial powerhouses. I like the direction Shane Beamer's going with that program in South Carolina, but it's not there yet. So maybe from that perspective, it's easier than if we had gotten Tennessee or we had gotten LSU on our schedule. But from a fanfare perspective, and this is also me thinking about our college football campus tour a little bit, like how much are you and I going to be at Florida, South Carolina? Like probably not likely as much. So that's a bummer for me.
That's disappointing. Did you notice, does anyone in the SEC, is it 3 powerhouses that they're playing every year that it's not fair?
I think that they're trying to spread it out a little bit. Alabama sees Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State.
All right.
You have LSU against Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. So I feel like they're kind of trying to spread out. I mean, they don't say that that's what they're trying to do, but it feels like to me, Georgia has Auburn, Florida, and South Carolina. So, Texas has Arkansas along with Oklahoma and Texas A&M.
That's pretty tough.
So, yeah.
That's a little tough.
I mean, listen, Arkansas is probably not an incredibly tough out, but they kind of have tried to maintain the integrity of, Texas A&M, Florida, Georgia, and then sort of fill it out after that. And just the way that it landed for the Gators, I'm just not super stoked about it. If I'm honest, those were not the teams.
I'm with you. Yeah, I agree. Amber, everyone knows that every week, and we are now almost through week 3 of the NFL. Tonight we got a great one, Ravens and Lions tonight on Monday Night Football. But we have to update Amber Wilson's power rankings. Let's do it here, Amber. Start at number 5, go 5-1 for dramatic purposes. You can't hear it now, but I assure you there is music playing over us. It's very, very dramatic and very, very exciting.
All right, good. I'm proud of you for the music. So there are some changes to Amber's power rankings this week for the NFL. Let's start at number 5. Number 5. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have entered the chat.
Oh, okay. Look at you showing some guts, putting the Buccaneers in. Good for you.
3-0 start to the season. Now, we're going to learn because they play the Eagles next week, all right? So this is all going to work itself out. But they had a close win, of course, against the Jets. It doesn't matter to me that it was close, though. They survived. Baker showed guts. That injury to Mike Evans is a super bummer. Chris Godwin, though, is supposed to come back. I don't know if the Bucs are going to stay in my power rankings as a top 5 team very long because some of the odds are certainly stacked against this team. But I do think coming off of this win, being 3-0 this season, they deserve it. The Bucs have scored go-ahead points in the final minute of regulation in 3 straight games. That is tied for the longest streak, Zaz, by any team at any point this season, ever since 1970. So that's the kind of guts that Baker Mayfield has. And then he goes on after the game, and he's a real one. And he says that their D coordinator there, and Steve Wilkes, he's the one who cut me in Carolina. It's personal to Baker. I love it.
Is Baker likable? I think he is, right?
So likable.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, when did that happen? I feel like he was like a cocky jerk. And, right, wasn't he a cocky bleep hole in Cleveland?
Well,
and none of us
remember, Amber, when his first couple years in the league, he wasn't that good, yet he was in all the commercials. And by the way, he was great in those commercials, but he wasn't very good. And so that's not a good look, when you're the number 1 overall pick. And now, I mean, Amber, how many quarterbacks in the league? I'm not saying how many quarterbacks are better than him. I'm saying how many quarterbacks in the league are you more confident with the football when you need a game-winning drive?
I mean, he's so clutch. Right? I mean, he's like, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, we're still going to say is the most clutch quarterback in the league. But Baker Mayfield has to be on the list of most clutch quarterbacks in the league. It's got to be damn near the top of it. He's really had a resurgence here. That's a very likable Bucs team, right? Apparently Todd Bowles is a good coach. I mean, there was a lot of questions about the Bucs, and they're just over here winning the division every year and doing pretty darn well. So they deserve to make an entrance into Amber's power rankings this week. Number 4. This is also a change. Jonathan,
can I just tell people my favorite part of this year, not just that Amber has given us the numbers, but when she does it, if you're listening, she leans into the camera.
Number 4. If you're not watching me, I mean, you're really missing out if you're just listening on audio, but I appreciate you either way. The Chargers, Jonathan Zaslow, are my 4th team in my NFL power rankings this week after week 3. They were my 5th team last week. So they did enter the chat last week, but they beat 3 division rivals now. It took them scoring 10 unanswered and winning this week on a last-second field goal there against the Broncos. But 3 division rivals, Justin Herbert looks great.
Yep.
We could have drafted that guy. Remember that whole thing, Zaslow? Remember I wanted to draft him and you wanted to draft Tua? That was fun.
The only person that had Herbert ahead of Tua was Mike Tannenbaum. That's it.
And me. Excuse you. How dare you? Number 3, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens obviously are playing the Lions tonight, so that game could determine a lot and could certainly change my mind here about Baltimore. we're going to learn. This is the team with a loss that I have here in my top 5 in my power rankings, but I still think the Ravens are phenomenal. I wouldn't be surprised.
So you have a 1-1 Ravens team ahead of 2 3-0 teams.
Correct. Yes,
right.
My only team with a loss that you will see making an appearance here in my power rankings, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 2, the Philadelphia Eagles. Every time you laugh, Jalen Hurts had more 10-yard completions in the second half versus the Rams in this game yesterday than he did in the first 150 minutes of football that he played this season. So apparently the Eagles have all of a sudden realized, hey, we can throw the football too and maybe throw it a little bit down the field. So that's scary if they figured that out because they look pretty remarkably unstoppable.
They've won like 18 of their last 19 games overall. And obviously the way that they won, they were down 26-7 in this game. And, they blocked the kick, fat guy scores, returns it for a touchdown. For the cover, by the way, with no time, a terrible beat if you had the Rams plus 3.5. That's when you're a great team, when you don't even play well and you still wind up making plays in the end to win.
That is the sign of a great team, like my number 1 team. Number 1, the Buffalo Bills. Not only did they whoop our asses Thursday Night Football, we don't need to revisit that, but they've got a very winnable schedule here coming up. They've got the Saints this next week, Patriots, Falcons, Panthers, Chiefs. Chiefs might suck now, Jonathan Zaslow.
Yep.
And that's really their next tough game, and then they get us again. The Miami Dolphins. The Bills might not lose a game until maybe Baker Mayfield has something to say about it. That's not until November 16th. And I'm not even sure I feel confident about that. I mean, their remaining schedule, Bills, Texans, Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Browns. Are the Bills going to go undefeated?
No, but they're probably going into that Chiefs game 7-0, which that's a really big deal.
Right. You don't feel confident that the Chiefs now are.
No,
you would probably take the Bills
not good.
in that game. Chiefs aren't good. Chiefs aren't very good.
Chiefs are not good. I know they're going to get Xavier Worthy back next week or the week after, and Rashee Rice is back in 4 weeks. But, I mean, that Chiefs seems not. Amber, I said it week 1. Chiefs might stink. I said it mid-game. All right. That team might stink. So give everybody again 5-1. Go ahead.
Okay, so 5-1 is the Bucks, Chargers, Ravens, Eagles, and the Buffalo Bills.
That's a good job out of you, Amber. Tell everybody.
Most likely.
Tell everybody how they can hear you, of course. Go ahead.
You can hear me tonight on ESPN Radio, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. You can also, of course, stream me on the ESPN app. I'm on air tonight and tomorrow on Amber and Ian.
And Amber and I, Friday night, we are in Athens, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, and Saturday morning, college football campus tour outside the stadium there, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time for Alabama, Georgia. It's going to be great. Excellent job as always, Amber. I'll see you in Athens this week.
Thanks.